Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, welcome back to r/ProRevenge, where you'll hear stories about people getting what they deserve. Guys, in this episode, you'll hear 3 lovely revenge stories. The first story, OP's dad deals with a neighbor who won't pay up. The second story, a sleazy photographer tries to blackmail OP's cousin and gets annihilated. And we'll finish up with a story where OP gets revenge on a business owner who makes her mom cry. Isn't that sweet? My friends, I do hope you enjoy the stories today, and hit that subscribe button for future stories. Let's dive in. Now, this story is not about me, but my dear old dad. So back in the day, he used to be a plumber. He then went on to join the military, where he sustained various injuries and chemical exposure. Anyway, this happened during the time when he was fighting for his disability. On occasion, he would do side jobs just to get by. It was very painful and difficult work for him, but alas, the bills needed to be paid. So, at the time, he had a neighbor up the road who needed some pretty serious work done on his home and offered to pay my dad a bit over $3,000 for the labor. To be frank, $3,000 was a bit on the low end for the work, but my dad figured, hey, help a neighbor out, and he really needed to make some extra cash. So the guy buys supplies, my dad does the labor, with promises that he'll be paid when it's finished. You already know where this is going. Surprise, surprise, the work gets finished and the guy doesn't pay up. Now, not only does the guy not pay my dad, but he has the gall to laugh at my dad and ask him what he's gonna do about it, since the work was done under the table. My dad was pissed. I remember when he flat out told me, that stupid idiot might not ever pay me, but he's gonna be paying someone that $3,000. Just you watch. And my dad gets to work. He couldn't spend a lot of time on his feet, but he had quite a few hours to kill, and he started planning the dude's comeuppance. He went to the store and bought a crap load of metal jacks, the kind that come in the game of jacks with the rubber ball and whatnot. He then proceeded to spend the next couple of weeks sharpening them up and making the ends into little spikes. Every time he would drive by the guy's house, he would casually toss a handful out the window into the guy's driveway. You can imagine, the guy was constantly getting flat tires and he had to continuously repair and replace them. So fast forward to Christmas Day. My dad calls me up cackling hysterically, so I ask him what's up. Now, this is one of the favorite memories of him, as he tells me, remember that neighbor? The one that screwed me over with $3 grand? Well, I just drove by his house, and he, the wife, and the kids are all dressed up for church, standing in the front yard by their car, and it's got a couple of flats. So my dad is still cackling as he says, I think he wised up, because he started to park in the grass, but that idiot didn't know I threw them in the yard too. I love my dad. OP's dad is a freaking badass, guys. Homemade caltrops. Honestly, I didn't even know that jacks came metal. I always thought they were plastic. But guys, the neighbor did deserve a bit more than a few flat tires though. Screwing somebody out of $3,000 and then laughing in their face, that guy deserves a little bit more. But I'm happy that OP's dad's happy, and that's all that matters, guys. It seems like he felt like he got his revenge. So this all started about 3 years ago. My cousin who lives in Arizona has always had the desire to have professional nude photos taken. She thought it'd be nice to have something for her husband to look at from when she was in her prime as they aged together. Also, I think it kinda turned her on. However, my cousin had no desire to have those photos publicly published. After a few years of chewing on this idea, she decided that she was gonna do it. She went out and looked for a photographer. She had a tight budget and ended up going with this one man who quoted her $300 for a 1-hour photo shoot. However, she asked him if he had any agreements to sign that would keep those photos confidential. He said he didn't, and she asked him if he could write up an agreement basically stating that the photos he takes of her cannot be saved on any of his devices, and the SD card needs to be given to her, and that she should be the only person with a copy of the photos. He agrees to that. His only request was that she buy the SD card herself. She also wrote up an agreement in which the following was agreed upon and signed. 1. Her photo shoot was to last 1 hour. 2. He would be paid $300. 3. He would edit 6 pictures of her choosing, and he would also print those 6 photos. 4. She would supply the SD card, and he would also delete any photos of her from any devices he has. 5. The photos he takes of her after he's done should not be saved to any device he owns, and the only copy should be on the SD card when he gives her the SD card. And 6. He's not allowed to share those photos with anyone for any reason, and those photos belong to her only. So the agreement was signed, the photo shoot happened, and the photos were edited and she got her SD card. All things well and good, and my cousin figured that was that. Obviously, we all know that this isn't the end, but it's just the start. Otherwise, I wouldn't be posting here. About 6 months after the photo shoot, the photographer contacts her and says that he has copies of her photos, and he knows a website where he can sell them to. If she doesn't want that, she needs to pay him $500. My cousin calls me and asked what I think she should do, as I'm pretty good at handling dynamic situations. I did some Googling and come to find out that this can be considered revenge porn, and that's illegal in the state of Arizona. In fact, it's a felony, which means jail time. And also obviously that this would be considered blackmail, which is also a felony. So I tell my cousin to do this. 1. Do not pay him. If you pay him once, there's nothing stopping him from trying to get you to pay again. 2. Remind him that you're both in the state of Arizona and it's a felony to distribute revenge porn. 3. Remind him that you signed an agreement which he agreed that the photos he took of her would not be saved, and he would never publish anywhere. 4. Tell him that if he publishes your photos, you will post him on blast throughout social media. She said thanks, and I thought this was the end of that story. But about 6 months later, I'm on Reddit browsing the adult subs, about to do my thing, and I'm in one of the subs when I click on a picture. And bam, I go limp. I'm staring at my cousin in a very seductive pose. I knew she was my cousin because you could see the tattoo of her son's name and birthday. It was a complicated feeling. At first, I was kind of annoyed that my wax session was ruined by running across a picture of my cousin. And then it dawned on me, that photographer did not listen to her and must have published her photos anyway. So now here's where things get a little bit more awkward. Because now, I have to call my cousin and tell her how I found her nudes as I was doing my thing. Not a conversation anybody would like to have with a blood relative, but she had to know. So I called my cousin and informed her of what I saw. I sent her the links. I went to the local Facebook groups and left nasty reviews for him. My cousin didn't want her name out there so people would go out and find them. I then googled how to DMCA and sent in DMCA notices to the sites that I could find that were hosting her photos. I also did a reverse image search and DMCA those as well. I taught my cousin how to do this herself. FYI, DMCA works, and none of the sites even argued with us. At this point, someone PMs me an attorney's number. They tell me that this attorney was an advisor to the revenge porn law bill that Arizona passed, and we should call the attorney. So I did. I explained the story to the attorney, and the attorney then explained to me that because I wasn't the victim, he couldn't really do anything until the victim contacted him herself. So I went to my cousin, told her about this attorney and how she should go speak to the attorney. Now, my cousin has a flaw in her personality. She's very quick to forgive. I tried my best to persuade her, but she said she felt the nasty reviews we left and the spreading of the news was enough. So another 6 months pass, and one day, my cousin calls me again and says, "You won't believe who emailed me." Being the quick thinker I am, I said, "The photographer, right?" She says yes, and I asked her what's up, and she said, he's asking for $10,000 to delete her photos, as compensation for the damages that we caused to his business. So apparently people don't want to hire a photographer who publishes people's photographs that they paid him to take without their permission. I told her it was time to call the attorney, and she agrees. So let's skip ahead a year. Apparently said photographer had plenty of money to fight the legal battle, and long end of the story, my cousin got him convicted for blackmail and revenge porn. Plus, she successfully sued him and got a civil judgment for a hefty sum of money. He's currently serving 3 years in an Arizona state prison. Granted, after she got her civil judgment, he had basically sold everything he had trying to stay out of jail, so it's unlikely she'll ever be able to collect. But basically his future earnings now belong to her, as I understand it. So this guy has gotta be one of the biggest idiots ever. Blackmailing somebody not once, but twice, and each time leaving a record of doing so because he sends it through a freaking email. So guys, excuse my ignorance, but with that as proof, couldn't OP's cousin have gone to the police or something? Like, would they have been able to help? I'm sure there's many people who he's blackmailed in the past, but OP and his cousin just decided to do something about it. It really does put a smile on my face though, knowing that he's locked up and his business is pretty much in shambles at this point. So, my mom and I decided to go out to lunch one day. We drove until we found a lot that had a business that didn't appear to be open at the time. My mom pulls into the lot and parks in a spot. We then both walk over and investigate the business's window. It was a pastry shop, for purposes later in the story. We saw that the lights weren't on, the door was locked, and there was a sign that says closed right behind the door. We conclude that they're closed and went to eat our lunch. We finish eating about a little over an hour later and come back to find that our car was missing. But now, the bakery was open. My mom and I walk inside the bakery and asked if they've seen our car. The owner, with a very stern tone and attitude, said, "Yeah, I had it towed because it was taking up spots for potential customers. You should have come inside to ask me first." Now, my mom responds that we did attempt to see if it was open and even buy something to see if we could park there for an hour. And she calls us liars and said they'd been open all day and we never even attempted to ask. My mom just basically said that we tried and that it was wrong for her to tow us with so many other spots available. The owner said something back to my mom that really upset her and made her cry. All while this was going on, I was taking mental notes that this bakery and pastry shop was having ventilation and insulation work being done. The insulation worker, who I can only assume was a random contractor and not a specialist, was doing work right over the prep table for all the food, all the while smoking a cigarette. As I go to console my mom, I turn around and tell the lady that her sign still says closed, like when we originally came to the door. She storms up to me, picks up the sign and slams it around to open and screams, "We are open now." I calmed my mom down, and we eventually got the car back from the tow company and went home. Once we got home, I was angry that the lady made my mom cry, so I wanted revenge. I called the health department for the city. I say exactly what I saw to the guy on the phone, who puts me on hold and tells me to repeat everything I said word for word to his director. I tell the director the story, how I was a concerned citizen, and she verifies the address and location with me 3 separate times. So she then tells me that she shut down that business the week prior for plumbing issues and multiple other infractions. The owner was told that she could not be open and operate a business until the plumbing issue was fixed and approved, and she told me she would handle it. Later that night on the news, that business was being shut down for good, for all the infractions, and I could see my mom look so confused and happy at the same time, like karma worked for her that quickly. I told my mom years later, and she loved it. So my friends, what is the moral of the story? If you own a business and you make a customer cry, you might lose your business. I guess you can say the bakery owner got her just desserts. And for all of you who needed revenge satisfaction today, I hope you got what you were looking for. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /ProRevenge. Guys, if you enjoyed the stories today, do hit that thumbs up. And if you missed the last episode of our /ProRevenge, an evil couple torments their stepdaughter, and OP comes and saves the day. Check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you lovely people in the next one. I love you.